So like, okay, you're not getting poor A1C scores. You're
Yep.
not seeing a ton of evidence of prediabetes. Your blood sugar levels on normal doctor's visits. Or even if you're one of these people who I think of as extreme, who look fit to me but are wearing CGMs despite no diabetes at all. Today, you go into a gym, you can see a bunch of people wearing them, and you know that they're wearing them for what I think of as just for fun. But what are the solutions here? Is it nutrition?
Well, that's a big piece of it. And so the way that I like to teach it is there are kind of four pillars of lifestyle factors that we want to address for insulin resistance. And then all of those pillars are on the foundation of mindset. We can manipulate one of these factors, but you have to develop mindset skills. I would love to dig into what you did, like how did you kind of do that inner work? But nutrition wise, what has been found to be most effective, especially for people who have insulin resistance already, is a lower carbohydrate diet. There are a couple of exceptions for people that can tolerate more carbohydrates, and those are athletes or people who are very active. So it's not necessarily I'm saying you need to do carnivore or you need to do keto. I'm kind of like you. I really like to look at the evidence. I like to be open-minded about every approach. And I like to say, okay, what's best for this person at this point in time? But a lower carbohydrate diet is good because the starches and the sugars, which are types of carbohydrates, those are going to be the one that spike the glucose the highest. And when your glucose spikes, your insulin spikes, again, to shuffle that glucose back into storage. So I would typically recommend maybe like 80 or 90 grams of net carbohydrates a day is a good starting point, and then see how your body adjusts from there. So that's like, think about 30 grams of net carbohydrates per meal. It's like a banana or a small serving of whole grains, or a few servings of non-starchy vegetables. There's so many different ways. I think tracking macronutrients is really helpful here. Then the second thing is high protein. So the more muscle you have, the more space you have to put glucose after a meal so that it can get into your muscles fast, get out of the bloodstream, stay out of your fat tissue. So we want to develop a lifestyle that really supports muscle mass. And that requires two things: high protein diet and resistance training. So with protein, I typically recommend at least 30 grams, but really 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal. And then on a per day basis, I like to recommend 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight, which is, subject to interpretation there. So that's why I say start with that 30 to 50 grams per meal. So like this morning, I had 5 eggs for breakfast. That's 30 grams of protein. It's also about the size of your hand. So if you have like cut up chicken or cut up steak, the protein serving size I recommend per meal is like that amount of protein kind of cut up on your plate. The last macro is dietary fats. And so we really want to prioritize the healthy whole food fats, olives, avocados. This is not rocket science. The more whole, real, unprocessed food you eat, the better for your health. And then part of the nutrition pillar too is intermittent fasting, which is one of the most effective ways that people can really improve their insulin sensitivity, reduce insulin resistance. 12 to 14 hours a day seems to be a great starting place for for most people. That's like stop eating after dinner, like 7. That really challenges people to cut out the late night snacking or the middle of the night snacking habit. And then have like 3 structured meals a day. So we don't want to be grazing all day long and spiking our blood sugar and insulin. You want to have a dose of food, especially with the protein, and then let your body rest and digest, and then have another one. So that's a good starting point. But if you're very insulin resistant, you might need a little bit more of an aggressive lower carbohydrate or fasting protocol. We always have to balance that with the psychology of the person too.